Hello, everybody. Nice to see you here online, and hello to everybody who will be listening to our webinar recording. And I think it will be very interesting because we are having today the ABC course for beginners and also for those who would love to enhance their practice of the teachings of Dr. Grigori Grabovoi. And I would divide our meeting today into two parts. I've got a message from one person who asked me, well, to describe the technique more precisely if we speak about our previous meeting, and where I told that the work consists as if from the passages, and so then you will have to think it over, to listen to it, and then to combine, well, what was said, because it seems to be that the passages are separated, well, somehow there is one general line. Or we may say the rod or the beam of thought, how it may happen. Somehow people ask how control can be carried out, and in the teachings it is carried out with the spirit, with the soul, consciousness, human body, and for sure in the contact with the God and the Creator. And we were talking about restoration of the gastrointestinal tract and geometrical forms, and so I'll give you a version how it can be carried out, but it is said that you have to create your own applications, your own techniques. There is a general line, well, that is the canonical form, how you can act, but somehow when you read the teachings, you would realize, well, how to combine the materials, how the archive and how archive or pack this information so it could be concentrated and you could have impact, and carrying out control could be proper. Agreed? So I'll give you some tips, well, how it may happen. For example, when we start, when we prepare for carrying out control, please find the place at your home or where you are. It should be your time and your place. And you get in contact with the Creator. And you can use the number series 1, 1, 9, 8, 1. You can visualize these numbers in a silvery white color or silver color, and the figures should be well shaped, and you can write them on the piece of paper and also may have a look at it, or you may have a look at them as if from the top. It is, I consider it to be very important to get in contact with the Creator. Why? Because when we get in contact, there is a sparkle, you know, and the God can see you because you are in this contact. And before you start carrying out control, you can use the number series 8, 8, 9, 4, 9, 1. Well, you just attune yourself and prepare. When you learn, when you master these techniques, well, so it would be going very, very quickly and even spontaneously when you need it. And if the body is weakened with the disease, sometimes you may feel resistance, yeah? And for this or another reason, and in this case, you may use the following number series: 9, 1, 6, 8, 8. And I told you that you'll have to find the place where you would carry out control and time for yourself, well, to love yourself and to practice for your health and for the implementation of your events in a favorable direction. And you may use the number series so to balance yourself: 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 5, 0, 1, 0. And you can work in a different way. Somehow, if you work, for example, with the soul, control can be carried out instantaneously. And if we speak about our previous class, ABC1, we were talking about curing gastrointestinal tract. There was this structure, this cylinder, with diameter 2 centimeters. Then it was the cylinder, then the boundary area, a piece of shape, and below there was a sphere. And how it can be carried out, you know, if a sphere is a canonical form, harmonious form, so it can be used as a coordinate system. And you have to, I would say, play, or you can move these forms and see. A cylinder 2 centimeters, well, a sphere, a diameter is 2 centimeters, and a sphere is a canonical form. It means that there's information of health and balance, and a cylinder, your gastrointestinal tract. And you can use it, the sphere, as a coordinate system, and even you can just use the sectors. And see in the cylinder where you have a problem, for example, in your gastrointestinal tract. And through this sphere, you would be able, for example, to see in what sector you might have a problem. And in this case, you can use the information or light to work, so to eliminate the information of disease. And you eliminate it in the future because we carry out control from the outer space, as if from the future. And in the future, you visualize this gastrointestinal tract to be healthy. Or you can use light, and you can work with these geometrical forms and to saturate, for example, the form with light. And you can see how the information of disease can melt, eliminate. Well, and you can see it from the outer space and from the point of the future. And then you can check how you carried out control. When you did it, so you can measure how you carried out your control. And for sure, you are doing it from the position of love. And attune yourself and be in love. And when you carry out control, please know that you have a cell of eternity, which is inside of you, both inside of you and in the outer world. Somehow, all the time, this cell of eternity transfers knowledge of health. And if you keep it in your consciousness when you carry out control, that is very efficient. And when you finish carrying out control, visualize yourself in the point on the beam of the future as a healthy person or a healthy organ in the norm, or your event as implemented in a favorable direction. And for sure, thank the Creator. Say the words of thanks. Have this talk to the Creator with the words of thankfulness. I consider it to be important. Well, that's what I wanted to comment at the beginning of our class. And today we'll continue our talk. And we'll be working on the material with controlling information. During, excuse me, during the work with controlling information, there are several stages when the ratio of control functions. For example, the ratio of your controlling structure with the actual physical processes take place, and it is determined by the primary positional orientation. The first stage is defined as follows. When controlling, it is desirable not to have any soreness or some painful feelings, painful sensations. And you should seek to normalize your condition, although different tumors cause strong toxic effects associated with the tumor dissolution and elimination through some cellular tissue structures. Nevertheless, it is necessary to use the same system of control in order to eliminate these effects, in order not to have toxic reactions. When carrying out control of events, you should have the standard of your own event position. And well, today we'll consider the model of extramuscular information output. Now, that is a practical model. The output of informative structure splitting up tumor goes on into extramuscular or out of muscle tissue. And you visualize that you push the split tumor tissue between the muscles and lead it out into the space where skin is informatively absent. There is no skin. Logically, there should be skin on the way, but when you lead the tumor out into a certain space where it is converted into non-neoplastic or non-tumor environment, you create the information of this exact transformation. Well, again, you push the split tumor tissue between the muscles and lead it into the space where the skin is absent. And you should not be concerned about the fact that skin should be there and so forth. It is a completely different point of view on the body in this practice, and some of the painful phenomena that pass through the peripheral nervous system outside the brain are conditioned by the cellular structure dependence on the neurosignals. And previously, when the process was getting organized, the matrix forms were identified notably. The information on reproducing transformed cells. And it has a kind of non-cellular structure. And wherever there are transformed cells, typical for cancer cells, the environment of their reproduction in one embodiment has a form of intact or non-changed tissue structure. What does it mean? So it means that a cell might get organized out of the adipose layer of the intermuscular tissue, sometimes from a muscle, rarely from a bone. However, the surrounding cells at the time of this organization are not changed. Therefore, when the cell starts walking, moving along the information areas of the body, along tissue base, blood, muscle structure, capillary system, it may stop somewhere. And it can organize a site of induration around it here due to the fact that there are the so-called drain cells, D-R-A-I-N, drain cells, and source cells. And drains appear when there is induration of a tumor type. Sources appear where there is tissue loosening. And when you listen to this webinar, you will have to think, drain cells, then what it is given for, source cells, what it is given for. If it is that when we speak about sources and the tissue loosening, it gives you a technique, well, how information of disease can be eliminated, or drain cells, how it can work. And if you have some questions, so we may consider it during our next meetings. And so the information of the structure changes. And in particular, molecular structure of the surrounding cells changes too. The nucleus of a healthy cell is displaced, and other processes appear there, and you also should know them. But they relate to blood diseases. Nevertheless, whenever there are neoplastic or tumor processes, blood is a subject to change. Blood is a subject to change, and here you can carry out this control, and also you can use number theories for blood. And especially if there is a concomitant resection when it was performed. And to control any events, you should transform the information intersected with the information of standard or normalized cells into the information of intracellular events. So we were talking about changed cells, about normalized cells, and so you think about information of their intersection. And we may say that there is even intracellular environment. And then there is the information process of the norm of macro events through the norm of micro events. Stage 2. Now we will talk about how to restore tissue structure if it was removed. When you restore tumor structures, you should be aware that one of catalyzing recovery factors is the structure of organs compensation. And the information structure is the primary structure because the cellular restoration must go through the level of compensation. The organism should stay within the information canon, sorry, at least when you work with it. Neuronic connection goes from the brain to the structures where there is a matrix form. And it was formed earlier. You should comprehend one of the following forms of control through signals and cells. This information is given not for reasoning, but for understanding. You should understand something new every moment. When, for example, people ask why it worked, for example, at once, or it worked later, or how the control can be efficient, why should I read more? Because you should understand something new every moment. Well, to saturate this process with positiveness and information of health or implementation of your events. And comprehension or reasoning is a final point. And the technique of access to information is such that at any time there is a method which can be interpreted in many ways according to different criteria. It means that different methods can be used well to practice. Somehow you should realize that every time it's for your benefit and your consciousness works, and here we can see its expansion. And you need to have initial knowledge, or how people, let's say, well, when in business people have a startup, yes, you need to have this startup. And this initial structure can be developed on your own. Grigori Grabovoi gives the following system. I really like it. If a person has decided not to die at all, then he or she will always have to think about something. And this will be the theory and practice of knowledge. The thing is what to think and in what direction. For surely in a positive direction, you know. And speaking about the fact that Jesus predicted the era of undying, including the era of the resurrected, the question of the spatio-temporal continuum of this reality arises. So where, when, and in what creative way? Where are the archives of the information that must be restored? And in what space? What space in? And technologically, the question of resurrection and immortality in the physical body is solved at the level of specific practices. For example, when Grigori Grabovoi gives the vibration of the word immortality, I will repeat it here. I will have a short training now. Immortality in the Russian language is it sounds like бессмертие. Immortality, бессмертие. Immortality, бессмертие. And I would copy, I did it like transcription for you. So you could also say it how it sounds in Russian. Or resurrection sounds like воскрешение, resurrection. воскрешение, resurrection, воскрешение. I'll also give it to you. So, бессмертие means immortality. Yes, and non-dying. Yeah, and воскрешение means resurrection. And you know, yes, Eleni, non-dying, бессмертие. And Grigori Grabovoi told that, for example, if even he used these two words in audio recording, and a cancer cell is destroyed. And the words turn out to be positive, and we should study these processes only because of this. And you can just start only with these two words. And that's it. What is given from the Creator is usually simple. And there are cases when people come without tissue structure, and it is not found by an X-ray, and so it can, it could, and it can be seen even how it merges. Then it is the process of tissue restoration or regeneration. And if you go deeper into the structure of comprehension, then it turns out to be possible to extend this effectiveness to all other organs. If a person understands how, know how, it's the person, aha, well, that's, I've got it. And those who would understand this faster would solve the problem with greater speed. And if to speak about the structure of restoration of the organs that underwent the stage of removal or resection, then we speak about the level. And it is not quite the level of the matrix. It is connected with the level of your thinking and understanding of yourself. I would repeat, it is connected with the level of your thinking and understanding of yourself. And ask yourself a question when you finish listening to it. What is the level of your thinking? And how you understand yourself here at the moment? Not stuck in the future, not or in the past, you see, well, but here and now. Or you may have a look where you are in the past and where you are in the future, and how you live and what benefits you. And from this understanding, a great output may appear. And when it comes to the fact what is to be restored, then there are criteria for consciousness resistance. And they are determined by the fact that there is a very powerful sphere of information that exist after organs resection or decomposed tissue, for example, does not regenerate, how it exists in collective consciousness. And in mathematics, for example, it is difficult to deny a formula, an equation, and it is hard to remove it with anything. You can just write it, place it on the sheet of paper, and that's ready. And at the level of thinking, there are some arguments, some reasons for man to consider that it's impossible. And that is a very important factor. Grigori Grabovoi writes that when he conducted a case on matter emergence, so then there could be publication in the newspaper about that case. So then he materialized matter to objects in the apartment, and that he didn't know. And so a report was drawn up, and everything was recorded, and seals were affixed. And he writes that there is one major element in this phenomenon. You must not traumatize the perception of the witnesses or people who are staying nearby during this case, who watch materialization for the first time. The experiment can be carried out when all people are targeted unitedly, when everybody concedes the tissue emergence. Once it was admitted, during that case, once it was admitted by everybody, then two elements appeared. At this point, in this case, matter appears. Functionally, it may be even inorganic, well, somehow matter appears. And when you carry out control, well, to restore organs, well, please mind it and practice it, and take your time and take your space. Sometimes it would be better even not to articulate, well, the disease for others, or and practice it and get your results, because for the reasons we have just spoken about. And when there appears a structure missing in a human body, then it can be functioning. And there is no logical deterministic problem in the reason matter. And here we have a problem of entering the tissue structure at the level of its functioning. For example, let's consider infinity. If a man has no part of a lung, L-U-N-G, lung, it is possible to project the structure which is not destructible in principle. It is just an example. And when you restore a form of information, at least at the level of thinking, then when you have information on this fact, for example, from historical things, from the history of recovery or practice experience, then you must be able to transfer information form, this information form, into reality. At the level of thinking, transform and transfer this information form of a healthy lung, for example, into reality. And here is the basis, the foundation of this practice. The above words is the element of access, the element of the existence of this point of view. Once you accept this point of view, then it will be much easier. If you accept this information that yes, organ can be restored, and the tissue can be restored from any state, it can be restored. You afford this information to exist, and that is the element of access. Recovery would be performed on the basis of the phantom. But a person must understand what he has to do for it to happen. And there is a level of different techniques which are given. And you are given mainly the ones which connect many aspects. And that's why when we learn the teachings, I have already told you many times, well, there are many passages, and even every passage contains the technology, technique or method, and how to carry out control, how you manage your life, how manage your events, well, to get to healthy state and lead full and full life in its beauty, in its divinity. And so we get to the point when we speak about the events of the future. That's a very interesting technology now, you will hear. If we speak about the future, then we have an infinite series. Infinite. There is the form of information where an event has an infinite number of future events. And this is the future information. Because the past is limited by the moment of its coming into being. And this is quite a complex psychological and social criteria. And the future is quite unclear. And this element of incomprehensibility is the basis of cellular structures activation. The future event is an element of information compression now. And to create an organ, tissue, or a whole body, it is necessary to think about activation of consciousness contours at the moment of human perception. Again, I would repeat, to create an organ, tissue, or whole body, it is necessary to think about activation of consciousness contours at the moment of human perception. The contour of consciousness is a spatio-temporal concept. And that's very interesting when you visualize or when you perceive it. It is a very special feeling, you know, how this contour of consciousness is felt. And it is infinite, and at the same time it can be perceived, and it is like the form for creation, for restoration, for rejuvenation, well, for the processes of creation, and for surely in contact with the Creator, with God. And then when we talk about how to condense the tissue to the level of absolute health, it isn't necessary to find about the future events, to find those time or temporal structure intervals and those spatio-temporal structures that we create. Speaking conventionally, it is possible to obtain healthy tissue at the next moment if to approach correctly to the system of non-destruction of the outer world. And it can be even seen on the CT scanner as tumor tissue disappear during Grigori Grabovoi sessions. And this process even cannot be too long. And the question is how to do so. And we can learn and from specifically from this work right now. Well, and the question is how to do so, and certainly primarily with reaching the situation of normalization, so that stability could be infinite in each structure. Again, stability and infinite in each structure. And this is infinite, endless line of future events has also a property of pressure, and pressure into the present. And here we can see the scheme, the future, the past, and the present. And the option is such that the dominating axis of an infinite range of future events is controlled sufficiently. And the source of informative structure at measuring is a point between the eyebrows. And at average, a person has a segment of 5 meters long coming out of this point. And everyone has it at birth as well. And there can be fluctuations in the length of this segment, plus minus 2 centimeters. And this information line is controlled. Technologically, it is transformed into a vertical planar structure by concentration of attention on the right forefinger, from 10 p.m. To 10:17 p.m., 10 o'clock, 17 minutes, 10:17 p.m., 17 minutes. It is a system of a reinforced concentration. Please mind that you can, all the elements of reality are equal, and that's why it means that you can use these techniques to carry out control, to manage your life events, and to get normalization of your health, to lead your healthy lifestyle. And you concentrate once, and there is a kind of, it's a very interesting technique. Please listen to it, and it would take some time, well, and or you can just realize it at once, but we'll start. You concentrate once, and there is a kind of double space created on the right forefinger. And then you concentrate on the same finger for the second time. Thus, you obtain a system of duplication. You have 2 informative areas corresponding to one hand. The first area that really exists is one thing. And you enter the information about the second area, while creating its matrix simultaneously, and start creating the tissue. This is the technology of tissue creation. With such technology, the event which is perceived as a single outgoing beam, its thickness varies up to from 1 to 2 millimeters. So beam is projected immediately on the area of the created matrix measuring. You need to know how to transform this planar system of control into your perception in the space. And you may walk it, watch something, and this plane would permanently restore you. And it is about creating some information structures that are constantly restore some tissue. So you can practice it, and you may walk in this state. And it is very important, well, to support this process, so it could be infinite. There is, for example, a statement, or when, for example, you may pray, and you may be in the state of praying all the time, and you can walk it, or you are in this state. And also, when you get in this state of restoration, it should be infinite. Try to support this process. It's like to support fire in your Tegel at your home, yes, from ancient times. Well, and this is one of the elements of control through spatial temporal view. And having this perception, one cannot fall from the mountain, for example. The principle here is levitation. And this level of non-dying, falling off, then you can use, if we speak about falling off, then you can use levitation. And if to speak, for example, business, yes, some people may experience problems in business, and there, in collective consciousness, there may be, for example, that if someone had a fall in business, so in visualizing, it may go like this. But if to use this principle in practice, that, there is a fall, and then you use this principle of levitation, and then it turns into the space, into the point of a plateau, because you levitate, and you can either start walking from this point of levitation, or there is a point where you can analyze how things are going in business, and this space would allow you to make a right decision. For example, even to buy, there was a question from one woman, Irina, how many supplies should I buy for my business? And that would be a point where you can measure, know how many supplies you need to purchase well for your further development of your business. And all the time, please, what is I would recommend, well, also keep the concept of eternity in your mind when you practice. And that is a system of survival, Grigori Grabovoi says, and we must strive to make it absolute, and then many of the processes would be easier to understand. When in ideological terms there is a desire for this natural survival and tissue recovery, many processes are easy to understand. And mathematics is a science which operates infinite series, so mathematicians are closer to reality. Somehow, what it means, what does it mean? Why this phrase is given here, that mathematics is science which operates infinite series, so mathematicians are closer to reality. It means that in the teachings you are given a canonical forms, canonical methods, and so you can use it as a starting point. That is the foundation for your practice, and there can be different applications, and there is space for your creativity. And in these materials, there are thoughts, techniques, and specific practice. But there is one of the laws according to which thoughts are already a practice of control. And it is even more than something physical. And there is only one objective. There is a problem, if there is a problem. We need to concentrate, to focus on its solution, and the thought of philosophical plan as well as of conceptual and technological plan should be applicable to solving the problem completely. So here we have come to the end of our meeting for today, and on September 9th I'll answer the questions from your messages, from your emails, and please feel free to contact us via Eternity group in Facebook, or Viva Eternity 9, that is gmail.com mail inbox, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. And also during the webinars, you can write it in the chat box. Well, I wish you every health and a happy, harmonious life, and every success in your practice. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Goodbye.